So yesterday we talked about what happens when there's errors. How does that affect the income statement? How does that affect the balance sheet? And it's that classic overstated, understated issue, which is kind of annoying. The balance sheet was a lot easier because if your assets are understated, your owner's equity is understated. In other words, if you think you have more in inventory than you really do, it's understated or overstated and making your owner's worth go up or down. Income statement was a little bit more challenging. Basically, if COGS is understated, then your net income is going to be overstated and vice versa, all of it. So that was yesterday. Today, we're going to just take a look a little bit more with financial statements and then analyze them in the form of two ratios that are really easy to learn. I feel like this was yesterday. No. Just like anything, and this seems more of like a repeat from yesterday, but whatever. On the balance sheet, inventory is always classified as a current asset because you hope to sell it within a year. Hence the whole current, you're getting rid of it in a year. Income statement, COGS or cost of goods sold is part of the revenue top portion. COGS has nothing really to do with an expense. Cost of goods sold offsets revenue resulting in your gross profit. So it seems kind of weird to put them here, but that's where the book put them. So you don't have to write all of this down, but here's what you need to know with a very heavy, intensive inventory-based like retailer. When you present all of this stuff on these balance sheet and income statements, you have to have some kind of disclosure there. So disclose that you have raw materials, work in progress, finished goods. Disclose, you know, are you using cost or lower of cost marketing, and disclose if you're using FIFO, LIFO, or average. So in other words, somewhere on the, you know, like a little asterisk on the financial statement and then down there in fine print below. Basically tell your readers what you're using. Kind of like I referenced yesterday, like in a BPA scenario, or if you're an intern, like ask them things like, are you using FIFO, LIFO, or average? Or in this case, put it on a financial statement. So it's just like, oh, by the way, we use FIFO as a cost flow assumption. Here's what, leading into what I really want to teach you here in this section of the ratios. Inventory management is a double-edged sword. This would be another great test question. Inventory management is a double-edged sword. It's that fine line that you want to sell enough to make a profit, but yet you want enough in stock so the customers are happy 12 months out of the year. It's pretty bare bones around most retail settings right now, isn't it? Because we're coming off of the holiday shopping season. They don't want to buy a bunch more snow boots because if you live in Minnesota, you should have your snow boots by now. But they don't want to put the flip-flops out yet because we live in Minnesota still. So there's the double-edged sword. You want to have enough inventory to keep your customers happy, but yet you don't want inventory collecting dust. Let's see what the chapter has to say about it. High inventory levels come with high costs. You got to store them. You have to have insurance for them. You don't want them to become obsolete. Town and Country doesn't want snow boots sitting around in April. They don't want snow blowers sitting around in April because if they do, they're going to have to store them, have more insurance on them, because those snow blowers are not going to sell till probably the next November. Low inventory levels are going to have happy unhappy customers. Okay, let's use that same snow boot example. Can we have a blowout snowstorm in April? We can. What if someone needs a pair of gloves or snow boots in April? Well, you might say, you're out of luck. It's April, people. The snow's going to melt. But what if you sold out of shovels? Probably could go without the snow boots. You probably can rip around in the old ones for a little while. What if your shovel broke and you need another shovel? So it's that double-edged sword of you don't want too much, but yet you don't want bare bones. You want to keep customers happy. This all comes in the form of two ratios. two ratios. The inventory turnover ratio, do you have this in my supplemental notes? You got to fill it in, I bet. Good. The inventory turnover ratio measures the number of times, on average, we sell inventory. I love that the purpose is to measure liquidity. So in other words, how fast are we turning it into cash? That's what liquidity means. So let's read that again. The inventory turnover ratio, if you had to describe it from a vocabulary standpoint, is how many times, the key there is on average, we're turning that inventory into cash, or we're measuring its liquidity. To calculate that, you take cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. Now, average inventory is a little calculation in and of itself. You take beginning inventory value plus ending inventory, and you divide it by 2. Beginning plus ending divided by 2 is your average. So in other words, on average, what do we have in inventory? Cost of goods sold divided by average inventory is what's called the inventory turnover ratio. And it's measuring the number of times we sell inventory to measure liquidity, how fast we're turning this into cash. We'll talk about some national averages. We'll talk about what's a norm. I don't know if you've ever been to Walmart on a Sunday evening, but usually the toilet paper row is pretty bare bones. They're turning over inventory like crazy, especially those staple goods. Like I literally have been down the aisle of the toilet paper row of Walmart when there's hardly anything on the shelves. Now, do you think they have some backstocked? Yes. Why do you think on a Sunday evening it's pretty bare bones? Because people are shopping on the weekend. It'd be interesting to look at some of like Walmart and Target's inventory ratios, inventory turnover, because they're turning over inventory like that a lot. That is needed to calculate our second ratio. How many days is stuff in inventory? It measures the average number of days inventory is held. This is the approximate time it takes for a company to sell stuff once it arrives at the store. What you do is you take 365 divided by what you calculated in that first ratio. So you need the first one to calculate the second one. Speaking of Walmart, we're going to talk about Walmart. Walmart reported in its 2011, I apologize about the lag in dates there. Just got to keep in mind this was probably pretty current when these books were printed, but Walmart reported in its 2011 annual report a beginning inventory of 32,713 million and an ending inventory of 36,318 million. COGS were listed there. So they're wanting you to calculate the inventory turnover for Walmart. So is this in your little supplemental notes too, I hope? Okay. So cost of goods sold. 287, but we know it's million, but we can just run with it. Just put the M back there so you know it's million. Divided by, we've got some math to do there, don't we? We are going to do 32,713 million. I'm running out of space here. I want to start over. I got to write smaller. 315,287 million divided by the average. So You guys want to try calculating it? Well, you can just do the 315,287 divided by 32. So you don't have to add the millions, but then we'll just put million on the end. Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is figuring out how many times they turn over their inventory. Completely. National average. In all the stores. What's on the shelves, what's on the back rooms, what's on the trucks. Do we have a number yet? Let's hear a couple of your numbers, see if they match. Is it 9.3? Okay. I feel like 9.3, I don't have my answer, but I have, oh no, I have 9.1. Do we have 9.1? Okay. So that means 9.1 times in 12 months. Right. Oh, yeah. Well, but it's times. Like how many times in 12 months are they turning it over? Does that make sense? Okay. That number seems low to me. Wouldn't you think Walmart is turning their stuff over more than 9 of 12 months a year? But that's everything. That's all of their inventory. They didn't talk about what inventory. I bet their toilet paper exclusively would be a lot more. Okay, but this is nail polish. This is Advil. This is clothes. This is fish tanks. This is all of what Walmart sells. That's pretty good. Then we want to roll into the next one, days in inventory. So we're going to take 365 divided by 9.1. This to me makes a little bit more sense. They're completely revamping their inventory about every 40.1 days. So just over a month. We'll come back to that. But when I looked it up, these are very typical of big box retailers. So what you see here, 9.1 times. So just if we round correctly, let's just say about 9 times a year or about every 40 days, they are completely liquidating what they have on the shelves, in the back room, on the trucks, at the distribution centers. That's, when you think about that, that's quite a bit. What I want you to take note of is what I have over in black here. And I forget if I pulled this from the internet or if it came from the book. But companies who are truly successful from a retailer perspective keep their inventory levels low, their turnover ratios high, while satisfying customer needs. And if you can master that equation of not having stuff sitting on the shelves and becoming obsolete, turning it over or liquidating it as quick as possible, but yet keeping your customers happy and finding that fine line of not collecting dust but having it available, it's considered a financial success or a recipe for financial success. I would like to try this in a end of chapter format with another bad handout. I do apologize, it's not 3-hole punched. The 3-hole punch is available. Brief exercise 6.8 actually is talking about the section I lectured on yesterday. Pettit Company reports net income of $90,000. However, ending inventory was understated. So in other words, it was lower than what it should have been. What is the correct net income for 2014? What effect, if any, will that have on total assets? So we need to talk about how is it affecting, so I'm talking 6.3 here. How is it affecting the income statement and the balance sheet? Let's do the easy one first. If we have undercounted inventory by $7,000, are assets going to be understated or overstated? It's going to appear we have less than what we really do, so understated. So assets would be lower than what they should be, and owner's equity would be lower than it should be. On the income statement, it's asking, what is the correct net income for 2014? I want to go back to this slide from yesterday. When we understate our ending inventory, is what we did, cost of goods sold ends up being overstated, net income is understated. There's your answer. So if we've understated by $7,000, the correct net, what would the correct net income be? Would it be the $83,000? Making net income, no, it'd be 97 because it'd be understated. If we understated what was left, it'd understate net income, so it should be 97, excuse me. What effect will this have on the income statement? Net income would be understated. And we already talked about this one. It appears we have less assets than we do. The understated, overstated gets so confusing. So I'll keep the questions to a minimum on the test, but just memorize that little section and you should be okay. I wouldn't put a problem on here like this. It would be more of a question. If ending inventory is understated, what would happen to assets? And that'd be the type of question that I'd give you. Now let's do 6.4. 6.4 is what we just came off of. 6.4, we have to do two ratios. We have to do the inventory turnover ratio, which is COGS divided by average inventory. We know that average inventory is a little equation in and of itself where you take beginning plus ending divided by 2. So I'm going to take, in this case, cost of goods sold, which is $270,000, divided by $60,000 plus $40,000 divided by 2. We are trying to figure out how many times this inventory is being liquidated. You guys want to run the numbers? I honestly don't have an answer key. I think it's 6.7 times. Just to throw you off. It has nothing to do with what we sold it for. It's more of the cost, or like, I think the answer is 6.7. All of you got 5.4? Cool. Well, we'll go with it. So this is 5.4 times. How well does this company manage their inventory? Not very good. After we saw Walmart being 9 something. Hold that thought on 5.4 times. Now we're going to do number of days. Number of days takes 365 divided by the inventory turnover. So in this case, 365 divided by 5.4 is what? There was my 6. I had a 67.6 days. So close to every 2 months versus Walmart about every 40 days or just beyond a month. What could you tell this company to tighten up this inventory management a bit? What would you tell them to do? Order less initially. Try to increase your sales a little bit. Lower your cost of goods sold. Try to buy cheaper stuff. That's the chapter. You guys did it.